first Star Trek episode to feature the Romulans, Balance of Terror was quick to become a fan favorite. But what's the story, Morning Glory, behind this amazing episode? Well, today, we'll find out. Written by Paul Schneider and directed by Vincent McKeevety, Balance of Terror would see Captain James T. Kirk and the crew of the USS Enterprise go head-to-head with their Romulan counterparts, in a classic game of cat and mouse whose outcome could either start or prevent a galactic war. Paul Schneider, the writer of this episode, also wrote the Season 1 episode The Squire of Gothos, as well as the episode for Star Trek the Animated Series titled The Territon Incident. Where The Squire of Gothos was just an okay episode, he certainly did a masterful job here. It really felt like a World War II U-boat versus ship type episode. Creating the cloaking device as a Romulan invention was a stroke of genius, again adding to the Submariner feel of the episode. Vincent McKeevety would direct 6 episodes of the original series, including Dagger of the Mind, The Omega Glory, and Spectre of a Gun. Here, out of all his Star Trek directing credits, I think he shows off his talents best. His use of camera shots, sudden close-ups, panning, quick shots, mixed with the expert use of lighting on this episode was amazing. You really got the feel of the danger our heroes were facing. This episode would also see Mark Lenard make his first appearance on Star Trek. He would, of course, go on to play Spock's father Sarek in the Season 2 episode Journey to Babel, a role he would play on and off in the various iterations of Star Trek for the remainder of his life. A little bit of Trek trivia for you here. Mark Lenard was actually one of the only actors in Star Trek to play a role in each of the Star Trek Big Three: the United Federation of Planets playing Spock's father Sarek, the Romulan Star Empire playing this episode Bird of Prey's commander, and a Klingon. That's right, Mark Lenard would go on to play the Klingon commander seen at the beginning of Star Trek the Motion Picture. The story for this episode was actually based on the 1957 film The Enemy Below, and Schneider actually caused some ripples in the sci-fi writers community for writing this episode. The great Harlan Ellison actually would stop speaking to Schneider after he was told what Schneider had done. Good old Harlan seemed to be everywhere when it came to Star Trek. Paul Schneider is of course fully credited for the creation of the Romulans and the Romulan Star Empire. Of this aspect of his creation, he had this to say. It was a matter of developing a good Romanesque set of admirable antagonists that were worthy of Captain James T. Kirk. I came up with the concept that the Romulans were an extension of our own Roman civilization, to the point of space travel, and I think it turned out quite well. Gene Roddenberry would oftentimes claim ownership over the creation of the Romulans, something which angered John D.F. Black, another Star Trek alum, to no end. And John D.F. Black had this to say: Paul was the father of the Romulans, not Gene, not me, not anyone else. The original story would have seen Styles dying at the end. However, this was changed as it was felt him surviving, being rescued by Spock, would be far more powerful. Just maybe making the audience reconsider their own prejudices. This episode, after all, came out during a time of civil unrest in US history. The original draft of this story was submitted on April 14, 1966, and after being revised numerous times by both John D.F. Black and Gene Roddenberry, the episode would begin filming on July 20, 1966, and finish filming on July 28, 1966. The first 5 days of filming would be all the scenes on board the USS Enterprise, with the final 1.5 days of shooting mostly taking place on the Romulan ship. And after production was complete, this episode would air on December 15, 1966. Oh, another bit of Trek trivia about this episode for you is in regard to the Romulan Bird of Prey's ship design. The scene where Commander Hansen was blown to smithereens actually had a bit of dialogue cut from it. Originally, Commander Hansen would have told us, and the crew of the Enterprise of course, that the Romulan vessel is of a Starfleet starship design, and that the Romulans had probably stolen Earth designs via espionage and traders. This was to be the basis for Styles' remarks about the Romulan ship being remarkably similar to ours, and why he thought Romulan spies might have been aboard the Enterprise. Another short but interesting shot was also cut from this episode that would have shown Captain Kirk saluting the Romulan commander just before his ship blew up. This episode also introduces us to the starship's chapel. Though non-denominational, I've always found it interesting that an atheist such as Roddenberry included it in this episode, rather than having the wedding scene in a theater or a rec area. Roddenberry always said there would be no religion in the 23rd century or in Star Trek, so that just makes this set even more odd. I have a sneaking suspicion, though, that Roddenberry was strongly suggested to create this set by higher up, and although I attempted to find out for sure, there is no information about this particular aspect of the episode. The Romulan helmets worn by the Romulan Bird of Prey's bridge crew were actually designed and used to cover the ears of the actors. This saved the additional cost of having to create prosthetic ear points for each of the supporting actors, and these helmets were reused in the TOS Season 2 episode Amok Time on the Vulcans, at Spock's Ponfar wedding, and the Season 3 episode The Enterprise Incident, again for the same reasons. The Romulan Bird of Prey model was designed and built by Hua Ming Chang, and measured approximately 2.5 feet in width, and he built it in about 2 weeks. Chang delivered the model to Roddenberry unpainted, and then the signature Bird of Prey graphics were applied to the underside of the model. Like the USS Enterprise, this model was a fully fledged, internally lit studio model, constructed out of vacuum-formed plastic, plaster, and metal parts. It was then sent to Linwood G. Dunn's visual effects house, Film Effects of Hollywood, to be shot for the episode. Stock footage from the shoot would then be reused in the Season 2 episode The Deadly Years. After the model was shot for this episode, however, it seems to have vanished, causing somewhat of a Scooby-Doo mystery. The Smithsonian exhibit of Star Trek memorabilia has stated that they were in fact in contact with a private collector who claimed to have ownership of the Bird of Prey, but was unwilling to give it to them for display. Chang himself has also claimed to have destroyed the model, saying because he was not part of the prop makers union, he was not allowed to fabricate any props for any television shows, and so after filming, he destroyed it. This would explain why the episode The Enterprise Incident did not have any new shots of the Bird of Prey, instead opting to paint the underside of a Klingon D7 with the large Bird of Prey graphic. Whatever the case, it is certainly an interesting little bit of Trek trivia to ponder. Personally, as I'm sure you can tell, I really enjoyed this episode. It isn't my favorite, but it is an excellent example of Star Trek doing what it does best, telling a story well and making its audience stop and think, if only even for a moment. Balance of Terror is an excellent introduction of the Romulan Star Empire to Star Trek, an interesting and complex foe for the Federation that would continue to appear throughout the various Star Trek series for over 50 years. It's truly gratifying to me that Star Trek Picard has taken the Romulan culture to a new level, showing us a new, more personal side of the Empire than had ever been shown before. And to think, all of these Romulan episodes and stories stemmed from this one single episode of Star Trek. It is a testament to Paul Schneider and his abilities, and certainly has earned this episode its place in Star Trek history.
Captain's log, stardate 1710.0. The Starship Enterprise is under heavy attack by an enemy vessel.
Obviously, their weaponry is superior to ours. And they have a practical invisibility screen.
Helm, hard over. Phasers, fire, point blank.
I'm pointing out that we could have Romulan spies aboard this ship.
The Earth Commander will follow. He must. And when he attacks, we will destroy him.
Permit me the glory of the kill, Commander.
Thomason. We have him. Move toward him.
We can get just one phaser going.
Phasers, Mr. Spock.
Impossible, Captain.
We have some of the old-style nuclear warheads aboard.
Yes, Commander, but only for self-destruction.
Place one in with the debris.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed this short little trip into the behind-the-scenes information of the episode Balance of Terror. What did you think of the episode? What is your favorite moment of this episode? Well, leave me a comment in the section below, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, hitting that little bell icon so you won't miss a single video we release. You're becoming a channel patron. The link to our Patreon account is in the description below. Thanks again for watching. Jolantru.